All right, cool. All right, thanks everyone for joining us again today for the third webinar on surviving COVID for the process serving industry, process serving and legal support industry. We've got about 600 people registered today, and I'm sure a lot of you have questions about navigating the stimulus package and loan options. So we're just gonna jump right into it, and our goal is to keep this webinar under an hour. We do have a special guest today that we'll introduce here in a minute. But first, our panelists who will help moderate and make sure all of your questions get answered. Joining us again today is the man who started it all, Steve Glenn, president of the Process Server Association of Colorado. Steve, thanks again for being here and for putting so much energy into helping this profession over the last few weeks, as you've always done. My business partner, Adam Camras, and our CEO over at ServeNow and Serve Manager is here as well, and along with our marketing director, Kyle Barr, whose team has been churning out a lot of content and organizing webinars like this. Myself, Trent Carlisle. We're gonna go ahead and get it kicked off with a few words from Steve. Steve, why don't you take it away here?
Okay, first I want to say that, again, you know, none of us, I mean, this is new to all of us, and so we all have the same goals. No one here has all the answers, nor do we are trying to pretend that we have all the answers. This presentation is being made to share ideas and provide direction. Hopefully we can give you a small nugget that you can take and use, and it'll help you save your business, prepare your business for coming out of this event. There are many ways to accomplish the same goals. So these are my thoughts or the thoughts of the speakers. What we know of as of today and how we're trying to protect our business, our staff, our servers, and most importantly, our families. In no way can I or any of the speakers direct you or have authority over you to do anything, make you do anything. So just please listen with an open ear, take what you can take, and go out there and do the things you can do so that when this event is over, that your business can go back and start rocking and turning these things back out.
Cool. Back to me?
Yes, sir.
So as I mentioned today, we're going to try to keep this at an hour. We're going to start with our guest presenter talking about updates on the stimulus options. And potentially get some input from our panel along the way. We're also going to field some questions via the Q&A and the raise your hand feature during the actual presentation. And then at the end, you know, the last 15, 20 minutes or so, we're just going to try to do sort of a rapid fire Q&A. We're just going to kind of see how this goes. It'll probably be Steve and Adam Camras reading those questions as they come up and then presenting them to our guest speaker, Adam Williams. We ask that you keep your questions brief and related to the topic that's being discussed or has already been discussed. And hopefully we can keep it sane here. So with that being said, why don't I turn it over to Adam Camras, who will introduce our guest presenter.
Yep. Hey, everybody. So just to echo Steve's comments, I just want to be really clear. We're not providing any legal advice, not any accounting advice, not any medical advice, and you know, use this as informational and make your best decision accordingly that works for your business. So welcome, Adam. Outside of having a great name as the start to this, he's also the founder of Erie Business Law, which is a division of Williams and Jorden out of Pennsylvania. And his focus is helping entrepreneurs and small businesses succeed. And you know, that's how he spends most of his waking hours. You know, outside of that, he and his son are major NASCAR fans. And he has devoted the last 3 weeks to really devouring and understanding COVID, the impacts on businesses. In fact, he authored the Business Owner's Guide to Surviving COVID-19, you know, which he will be talking about. But you know, he realized this was, you know, very detrimental, the impacts of it, and it's really confusing. And he's taken a lot of time to educate and train many small business owners throughout the country on the best ways to navigate that. So with that said, let's turn it over to Adam. He's going to talk for about 15 minutes on the various topics, give or take, that cover it, knowing that it's changing every single day from yesterday to today. We may not have all the answers, and if we don't have them on this webinar, we will jot them down and try and follow up post webinar and have a form to do that. So welcome, Adam. Thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure to be here. So it's interesting you mentioned the NASCAR thing, because in 2018, my son and I went to Talladega. His favorite driver in the world is Eric Almirola, and you have to be a NASCAR fan to know who Eric Almirola is. But my son and I drove all the way to Alabama. Eric won the race. He hadn't won in like 5 years. So my son and I actually snuck into victory lane, and the official Monster Energy photograph from that race is like Eric and the pit crew and the sponsors and me and my son. So there's a possibility that if you're a process server in Alabama, you're looking for me right now, because we snuck into victory lane at Talladega. So that's the kind of lawyer that's talking to you right now. All right, so thanks for having me here. Adam's right. I have spent a ton of time staying up to speed on all of this stuff. I've also got 2 lawyers in my office who have been helping with a lot of the research and looking into the different nuances and things like that. So I know a lot about this. I know as much about this stuff as you can know for a law that's like 2 or 3 weeks old and that changes almost every day. So I wanted to start with as basic an explanation as we could, and then see what your concerns were, see what types of questions that you had. So right now there are really 2 programs that everybody's talking about through the federal government that are available right now. There could be more stimulus bills coming. There could be more laws that change. There could be other dollars that become available. But for right now, the 2 programs everybody's talking about are the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Payroll Protection Plan. So I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of both of those, and then we can dive in a little bit deeper if we need to. So the first program that came about because of this crisis is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. We call it the EIDL loan. And this is a program that actually already existed through the SBA, but they changed what the funds when the funds would be available. So it used to only be for things like earthquakes and fires and floods and things, those types of disasters. And then they changed the law and decided that the COVID-19 crisis would qualify. So through this program, you can apply for funds on what is a very easy application to complete through the SBA. Right now, if you know your numbers, you can have this thing done in about 10 minutes. The problem is you can't request a certain amount of money. The SBA is going to decide how much you're going to get. The application went live last Monday night. They changed the application because of the changes in the law. The application went live last Monday night, and everybody's understanding was that you could request a $10,000 advance on this loan, which you wouldn't have to pay back. $10,000 free dollars for people that applied for this program. And whether you got the loan or not, you were going to be able to keep that money. So when the application went live last Monday night, a ton of people jumped on it. I don't have any direct knowledge of anyone who's actually received this money yet. As far as the advance. We're also hearing rumors that the advance may not be $10,000 for everybody. It may be a little bit more. It may be based on the number of employees you have. But if you're hurting for cash right now and your business has suffered an injury because of this crisis, the EIDL is a good starting point for you. It's not for everybody, but it's a good starting point for you. Because other than actually providing services and getting paid by your clients or customers, it's probably going to be the second fastest source of new cash that you can find. Obviously, if you have a line of credit you can draw on, that's faster too. But so short term, you want to keep doing business as much as possible. But medium term, the EIDL may be a good option for you to go out and get some quick money. So you can get this advance of whatever amount they tell you can get, and it actually doesn't have to be paid back. So that sounds pretty nice. Any amount that you get beyond that grant, It's going to be on a term up to 30 years, and it's going to be at 3.75% interest. If you know anything about borrowing money, those are pretty good terms for something that isn't secured by a mortgage or something like that, and that doesn't require a personal guarantee. The loans are going to be up to $2 million, and you can use the money for things like sick pay or maintaining insurance or paying any debts that you had before this crisis. So that can be a really good source of money, and hopefully it comes pretty quickly. One SBA office is telling us it'll happen by the end of this week. So if you've applied for the EIDL and you haven't heard anything yet, you're in the same boat as 10 million other people, probably more than that, who are waiting for a decision on it. And I don't know if this applies to anybody on the call, but if you've got over 500 employees, you're not going to qualify for that program. So that's the first program. Then the second program that came out is this payroll protection program. And if any of you have ever gotten an SBA loan, especially under Section 7A, it's similar to that process, although we're still figuring out what the heck is going on with this thing. But in general, with the payroll protection loan, you can borrow 2.5 times your payroll. That's the amount of the loan that you can get. If you're a sole proprietor, you can borrow 2.5 times your monthly payroll. If you're a sole proprietor, you can borrow 2.5 times your monthly payroll, but it would also include your earnings from the company. It's actually a really complex calculation. Same deal, you've got to have fewer than 500 employees. But the nice thing about this program is once you figure out how much you can borrow, after you get the money, whatever you spend within 8 weeks on payroll, mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities gets forgiven. So if you've got $10,000 a month in payroll, you could borrow $25,000. When you get that $25,000, if you spend it properly, all or a portion of that could be forgiven. So this is more free money. What doesn't get forgiven is at 1% interest over 2 years. That's going to be a whole other story there. But the purpose of this loan is to maintain payroll, to protect payroll. They actually named this one appropriately. So if you get rid of employees or if you cut their wages, you have a grace period until June 30th to bring those numbers back up. And if you do that, you can get the full benefit of the forgiveness through this program. This application went live last Friday morning, April 3rd. And it has been a complete disaster so far. Some banks aren't accepting the applications. Other banks started accepting them and then stopped. It's hard to describe how bad this process has been without swearing a lot about it. So there are people freaking out because payroll protection, there's like $350 billion available through the program, and they think they're going to run out of money. But the reality is the SBA only lent $38 billion in all of 2019. So it's not as if they're going to lend 10 times that amount in a very short period of time. So you may be getting a lot of pressure from your banker to apply for this loan. You may be hearing from the media that they're going to run out of money. None of that's going to happen yet because there's no way to take your application from your bank and get it to the SBA yet. They haven't invented that process or created that process. So you've got some time to get your ducks in a row and get your numbers figured out on that program. So we've got the EIDL, we've got the fast money, we've got the possible $10,000 grant that can be forgiven. We've got the payroll protection program, which will likely be a lot more money for most people with different forgiveness terms, which that program isn't really even running yet. And then we've got the combination of what if you apply for the EIDL and then later get the payroll protection. And there is a way to sort of refinance one into the other. There is a way, if you spend it properly, to have both programs, but it's not necessarily a bar that if you did one, you can't do the other one. So I think that was fast. I threw a lot of statistics and details at you, but I think that's like the basic overview that you need. And then depending on what questions you guys have or what you want to know, we can build it out from there a little bit.
Adam.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, Adam, we have a question from David. I hope I pronounced this right. Holtzwith. He wants to know, and this may or may not be in your purview here, but his question is about someone receiving Social Security, I guess would be disability, and being able to receive unemployment benefits too. Do you
Yeah,
know
so that's question one, is what type of Social Security is it? Is it disability, or is it SSI or some other program? The other question there is unemployment is really a creature of state law, so it depends on what state he's in. I haven't seen. I do know that in unemployment's a state law. They made changes to unemployment through these recent federal laws, though. So people are going to be getting an extra $600 a week. Now people who are self-employed can get unemployment. So they have really expanded the coverage of unemployment because the federal government's paying the states for it. But I don't know, Dave, in your state, whether it would be a bar or not. I know in Pennsylvania, I don't think that it would prevent you from getting unemployment if you're getting Social Security retirement income. Disability may be a harder argument, or it may just reduce the amount of benefits that you can get. But that's a good question.
David has raised his hand. I'll see if I can unmute him for just a few seconds to clarify or ask this question.
Hello?
David, you there?
Yes, I am.
There you go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm in Texas, and it's not disability, it's regular Social Security. I heard Steve last week talk about he had a 73-year-old guy that's worked for him for a lot of years, and he applied for unemployment. And most people that have one-person shops and hire process servers through contract labor are in a situation where they're probably under unemployment because they won't qualify for the other benefits. But this has been supplement income that's been received for some of these people for 5, 6, 7 years, and now it's gone. So the question is mainly about Social Security benefits that do come in that are probably not enough to live on, but will they supplement with unemployment for those people?
What I've read and saw and is that everyone should apply for unemployment because even the person who all they were doing was working part-time, which normally wouldn't qualify for unemployment, that they probably would be approved for unemployment, even including the coronavirus part of that. In other words, they would get a regular unemployment and they would get the $600 extra every week when that program is actually put in place. So I advocate this, David. You apply for everything and then find out what fits. Because in reality, when you give yourself a lot of options, then you're probably not going to miss something. The last thing you want to do is miss something, the deadline goes by, and then you find out you should have applied for it, and it's a little too late at that point in time.
Yeah, and I don't know how it's going to work in Texas, but in Pennsylvania, you would get Social Security, you would get unemployment. You would have to tell each of them how much you were earning, but it's probably not going to be so much that it's actually going to affect your benefits. I don't know if it's the same in Texas.
Steve or Adam, you want to take any other questions from the Q&A? If not, I have some hands raised.
I have a question before we get to a hand raise, if I could, Trent. Adam, you talked about EIDL, EIDL, and then the payroll protection and the ability to use them both and not have them, use them both. Can you explain more about that? In other words, I was under the impression like you get the EID, if you got that first, they always ask the question on the application for the payroll protection. If you've gotten it, I thought that they were going to basically either pay that off or would they just cut the benefits down so that you wouldn't get more than the 2.5.
Yeah, so this ends up being a pretty complex calculation because if you want to get both, there's a way to do it. You got to decide if your business can support that much debt. So this is a rough example. I don't want anybody to go out and do this, but as an example, if you get the EIDL and you use that money to cover other debts or other costs that have hit your business because of the crisis, whatever those would be, but you don't on payroll, rent, mortgage interest, and utilities, that's its own separate thing. And then the payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, and utilities is going to be under the PPP. So you can, if you get the funds, spend them on two different things. So here's the free advice. One of the things we're telling all of our clients to do is when you get any money from any of these programs, put it in a separate bank account. Because at some point you're going to have to show how you spent that money, And that's going to be the easiest way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Should I go to a hand raise? Let's see,
Do it.
we got Paula. Go ahead, Paula.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is around the payroll protection plan. It's through the Small Business Administration, but it's actually being administered through the banks of the United States. If you currently bank with a bank that is slow to market with their portal so that you can apply, or if they're, they roll, like my particular bank rolled this out in a really awful way, and the portal kept breaking and they kept changing it while people were in there to try to apply. So it's literally taken me 4 days. But I was hearing that there were other local banks that were doing an excellent job, and I wanted to apply through them and perhaps open a bank account so that I could get the thing rolling. And I was told that you have to apply through your current business bank. Do you know if that's true?
My advice to everybody has been, unless you need to, don't apply yet, because so many of the things that you just said are completely wrong or just really bad rumors. And I don't mean any disrespect to you, Paula. It's the bankers and the SBA and the Treasury Department that can't get this thing figured out. Banks are deciding that they maybe only want to work with current customers on this program. Some banks are deciding that. I want to say it was Wells Fargo said, we're only taking customers who already owe us money through other loan programs. And then of course, somebody has already sued Wells Fargo for that. So it continues to be a complete disaster because nobody knows what to do with these applications once they get them. If we want to get into really fun economic and financial policy, there's a lot of risk to the banks because of this program. So that's why some of the bigger banks are limiting either how much they'll lend or who they'll take applications from. Whereas the smaller banks, the community banks, are doing it to maintain relationships. They'll take a little bit of risk on this one because hopefully next year you'll come back when you need to refinance your mortgage or take out another business loan, and they'll have that relationship there.
I got you. Thank you.
I meant this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just thanking him for answering.
Oh, Paula, in our building, and I was supposed to say this in the beginning, and I forgot, but in our building, Academy Bank opened up. So they're marketing all through our building. And they told me initially that when I called the 800 number, that they would be doing the loans, come sign up, and they wanted me to switch all my payroll to them. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So I went into a branch and the main office downstairs, and they told me that they're going to just require that you open a bank account with them to fund the loan in there, because that would be actually a better way for you to move the money out and say what it's going for. Chase Bank is who I'm with, and they sent out an email and said, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do it. But I haven't heard anything from them. I went on the Academy Bank website and applied last night. It was like a 15-minute application, and the only documentation that I needed was a summary of my payroll from 2019, and they told me they would get back to me within 3 days. So again, it's one of those things that with the options, just keep your options available, and every bank is going to have different guidelines, but even the administration has said, go to your community bank. Because most of these big banks, I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty far down the line when it comes to their customers nationally and who they want to help, as opposed to me, even though I think for the branch I'm at, I'm probably a big customer of theirs. But
so let me give you an example on that of why this is such a mess. You said that the only documentation required was your 2019 payroll, right? Well, the law says it's not 2019, it's the 12 months prior to your application. So some banks are looking at only 2019 numbers because that's the last calendar year, but other banks are looking at, call it March 15th or April 1st, going back 12 months. And that can have a pretty significant difference for a business if they're growing or shrinking at a pretty rapid pace. So we're trying to find the banks that'll be a little more flexible or be open to that, because it does make a big difference. But that's another example of The banks don't know what the guidelines actually are. So they're telling you one thing when in fact there could be something that's way more beneficial for you. The other part of it is the law and the rules that they issued spell out very specifically how to calculate your average monthly payroll. I haven't interacted with anybody yet who's done it right because they're not looking at the law closely enough. So you're absolutely right, Steve. It's a very easy application for both programs. The problem is on the PPP application, it says, what's your average monthly payroll? And nobody's calculating that the right way. And they're leaving, so somebody who leaves $5,000 on the table in average monthly payroll, that's $12,500 of loan that they could get that they're not taking advantage of. So it's deceptively simple. It's a shame because they don't tell you how to calculate it on the application, and the bankers sure as heck aren't doing it right.
Steve, Kyle, Adam, Cameras, anyone from the audience have questions you guys want to read? If not, I can go to another. Go ahead.
There are two in the chat that I think are pretty good. If I can,
okay.
You got
go for it.
So somebody asked the 2.5 times your monthly payroll excluding salaries over 100,000. So this is the calculation of your average monthly payroll. This is what I was just telling Steve nobody's getting right. If you've got employees or yourself that earns more than $100,000 in a year, it is a cap. So that ends up being $8,333 a month. That's all you can include for that employee. But that's one of the examples of what goes into this calculation that people aren't getting right. And then the same guy asked another question that said on the payroll protection of what doesn't get forgiven, what happens with that? On the payroll protection, what doesn't get forgiven is it's 1% interest, and that may change. But right now it's 1% interest, no payments for 6 months, but you've got to pay off the balance in 2 years. So this is going to be a pretty important cash flow discussion for a lot of businesses that if they don't get the forgiveness, what's that going to look like for their cash flow in the future? Good question.
One for you from Tina Hall. And I'm going to read it as she wrote it. 1099 gig subcontractor servers are by IRS standards, not employees. When filling out an application for an SBA loan, I did not include my 13 subcontractor servers as employees. Therefore, I'm concerned about my eligibility. Any information on that? In other words, what I'm taking from
Good
this
question.
is she's an owner, but she doesn't really have staff, but she has independent contractors, and she's wondering if she would be able to still qualify for a loan in that regard.
So the amounts that she pays to her contractors won't be included in her loan. That was actually something that a lot of lawyers got wrong, and I was in this category. We thought the law said you could include them, and then a week later they issued these rules, and you couldn't anymore. So your payments to contractors don't count as payroll for the Payroll Protection Program, which is really unfortunate. But those individuals can still go out and apply for their own loan. And I think that's the SBA's argument is why should you be able to borrow against that when your contractors can? So eligibility isn't really the question. It's really more a question of how much does that affect how much you can borrow? So for example, if you have an entity set up and you're paying yourself wages, that'll be included. If you're a sole proprietor and you show net income, that can be included. But the payments you make to your contractors and subcontractors won't be included. As of right now, that may change.
But they can actually apply for themselves as
right.
Contractors.
Yep. And that application for sole proprietors and contractors opens up this Friday, theoretically.
And the idea too is if you think about it, in Colorado, they're going, and California, other places, they're going through this thing where you're basically doing these audits from the Department of Labor. And if you were to include your independent contractors and continue to pay them as if they were employees, you would never win the audit, never win the audit.
Yeah. That's definitely a nationwide trend.
Yes.
Adam, we've got a question from Danielito, who's watching via our Facebook live stream. The question is, I'm a sole proprietor here in San Diego. My understanding is that since I don't have a physical business location and work from my home office, that this will exempt me from the SBA loans for small businesses. So is that something you can address?
Yeah, that's not right. He's a sole proprietor, so that means he probably shows his taxes on Schedule C. So what he shows for his income on Schedule C, I think it's line 32, but don't quote me on that. But what he shows for income on Schedule C, divide that by 12, and that's his payroll number, plus if he has any other employees or wages that he's paying. So yeah, sole proprietor, that application for the payroll protection opens up on Friday. There's no need for a physical location. It is going to get messy on the back end because, again, you borrow based on payroll or in that case, income, and you make payments on payroll, rent, mortgage, utilities. Can he include his home mortgage or his rent on there? That's going to get a little questionable, but he's certainly eligible for the program.
Adam, I'm sorry, I lost the question. I was going to respond and tell this person I was going to ask their question. So I'm not going to call their name because I can't find the question, and I think it's just important to do this. Basically, what he's asking is, how do these things benefit them? So when we talk about, and I'm just going to maybe lead you through a few questions, the payroll protection plan. Could you just explain it real short, a couple, 2, 3, 4 sentences, why that program's in place, and talk a little bit again about the forgiveness? Because I think you did that in the beginning, and maybe he missed that out. So if you'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea with payroll protection is to keep people employed. So the amount that you can borrow is 2.5 times your payroll. That's tied to keeping people employed. Then the amount of forgiveness is based on how much you spend on payroll and a couple other things. So if you borrow the money, you maintain jobs, and you spend the money the right way, it gets forgiven. It's free money, right? So that's like the most simplified version I can give of that. It gets way more complex because how do you calculate all of that stuff? But as an example for the forgiveness, right? If you spend more than 25% of your loan proceeds on stuff other than payroll, so let's say half is rent and half is payroll, you actually won't get the full amount of the forgiveness. They want you to spend at least 75% of the money on payroll. Like, that's the whole intent of this thing, is to keep people employed. It's possible you're a one-man operation and you just got to keep yourself employed, but that still applies to you. So that's the basic version of it.
And let me add something to that, and then I'm going to ask another question. Sorry, Trent, I'm going to hijack your deal here. Okay, so basically, if any portion that's, let's say, not even call it misused, but it's used for something other than that 25-75 split, then basically they would get a prorated forgiveness, and then that prorated forgiveness, they would end up with a loan that would be at 0.5% for whatever term that they gave to them. Is it 2 years? 1%. 1%. I'm sorry.
And well, don't be, because when the application came out, it said 0.5% and it said 10 years. Then they changed the rules a couple days later, and it was 1% and 2 years. So
right, you
were right at one point, but this thing's changing so fast.
Okay, so in this scenario, let's take a self-employed process server. He doesn't have any process servers. He doesn't have any staff. He makes $75,000 a year. Well, let's just do something easy. Let's say he makes let's just do something real simple. Let's say $8,000 a month, okay, $8,300, which basically is $100,000 a year. He would be able to apply for the payroll protection at on an average of $8,000 times 2.5, which would come to, I think you said 25,000, rough numbers, okay? So he would be able to get a loan for 25,000 that would cover him for the next 2 months of payroll, correctly, to himself. Then if he used if there was money left over, then he can either pay the loan off, or if he kept it to fund cash flow for his business moving forward, then he would have to have a loan for that difference between the 2 months income he paid, the 16,000 he paid himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and this is where we're having one-on-one conversations with people, because let's take this a step further. You keep yourself employed. You're slow right now. Courthouses aren't open. Nobody's getting in car accidents. But when the floodgates open back up, process servers are going to be slammed. Everybody's going to be suing everybody over everything. So why don't you use some of that money to build out some capacity, right? Maybe it's better software. Maybe it's hiring another employee. But when the floodgates open, are you going to be able to handle that much more business? You know, the companies that we're working with will, because we're coaching them through that. But that's a big question, right? Is how much busier are you going to be when we get back to doing business again?
So the difference of that, and to add on to, let's just say that at the end of the day, process server had $8,000 left over, and he chose to keep that for a 4-year loan, whatever interest rate it would be, and basically to fund this business until his cash flow became stable. I think that that's a great strategy. Now let's look at the front end of this. While we're waiting on them to figure out how to do this PPL, and I mean the payroll protection and the EIDL program, would it be a good strategy for people to go ahead and file the unemployment claim, even as an independent contractor, to make sure that they have money coming in and they're not hurting themselves, and then jump off of it once their loan is funded?
Yeah, so there's a couple things to think about there. Unemployment, I think, is going to be a good option for a lot of people, especially with the federal government sweetening the pot a little bit. In Pennsylvania, as a business owner, you can't even apply yet. Like, they changed the law so self-employed people can get unemployment, but there's no way to actually apply and get it right now. They haven't figured that part out yet. So that's one thing to consider, is looking at the cash flow there. But then on the other hand, will that impact your ability to get an EIDL loan, which may be better for your business? So you kind of got to balance what you're going to get in state benefits and whether that's going to prevent you from getting the EIDL loan or the advance on that.
So they wouldn't be able to do them both to keep the stream of coming along, or there's no answer to that question right now, is what you're saying?
I don't know the answer to that one right now, because we haven't seen many self-employed people getting unemployment yet, because we're doing a lot of this stuff nationally, but most of it is in Pennsylvania right now. And we just haven't had to worry about that because we have no way to apply for unemployment, and they haven't sent out the EIDL money yet. So we haven't had to deal with that one yet.
Hey, Steve, we have a lot of people with, oh, sorry, Adam.
Well, I mean, if you can apply now as a self-employed individual, do it and start collecting those payments. And then, like you said, apply for things, and you can always say no to them later. So if you get unemployment now and you apply for the EIDL and for the advance, that's when you sort of got to stop and say, all right, which one of these paths, or maybe both of them, am I going to pursue?
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead with questions, Trent?
Yeah, we have some people that have been had their hands raised for a while. Let's get to some of those, and then maybe in the meantime you can identify some more questions in the
I don't see those
in the chat there.
hands. All I see is the question.
No, I got it.
Okay.
I got those.
All right.
All right. Let's see, William, you've had your hand raised for a while. William Oakes, are you there? Try to unmute him.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
Yep, we hear you, William. What's your question?
I was wondering about being a self-contractor through a business, and I only work for that one. And I was wondering about the situation. We're not that busy down here in Texas, and I didn't know if I could. I'm on Social Security. I've got a retirement check, and I don't know if I qualify for that, for extra income or not. Am I making sense to you on that?
Which program are you asking about?
About the, if I'm getting benefits from Social Security, because I'm up in the age and I just do this part-time. And I'm just curious, you're saying that we can file for unemployment here in Texas, or no? Maybe.
I don't know about Texas. I do know that the federal government does allow people who are self-employed, which includes you as a contractor. It does allow you to apply for unemployment and get unemployment. I don't know how much that's going to be in Texas. In Pennsylvania, it's based on how much money you earn. So if this is a part-time gig for you, the question is, how much have you earned, and have you paid enough into the system to be able to collect back out on the other side?
And I think in the actual stimulus plan, they actually changed the unemployment to allow independent contractors and self-employed, which normally don't qualify for unemployment insurance, to be able to get it. I think
Let's go to another one. David, if you are there, get you unmuted. Can you hear us?
He's still showing muted on my screen.
I clicked on. All right. Are you guys seeing any other questions in the chat?
I have a question out here if you want, while you're looking for one. Can I do that?
Yep, go for it.
From Amanda Morgan, I applied for an EIDL loan last Tuesday. Initially, I was told the process would take a few days to hear back via email from the SBA. I talked to the SBA yesterday, and they said it can take 3 to 4 weeks process application and the money in the bank in 3 days. And the money in the bank for 3 days. Apply once the application is approved. Is there an accurate turnaround, Adam?
I totally feel her pain right now. No, nobody has any freaking clue what's going on with this thing. I hate to say it to you. Everybody thought you'd get your advance within 3 days of your application. After 3 days passed, the SBA came out and said, what about we just give you the advance within 3 days of approval? I think it's reasonable to think approval is going to take a couple weeks. I have seen one report that says those payments will start going out later this week. So if you applied last Tuesday, you applied within 24 hours of the application going live. But no, I have had no firsthand reports from anybody that I consider reliable on any time frames there, unfortunately.
I think I have David unmuting figured out. You there, sir?
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Good. And you?
Great. All right. The question I have a bunch of independent contractors who work for me as process servers, and I want to give them the best advice for them so that they can do the best financially during the short term. I laid all of them off, so they're all applying for unemployment, and hopefully they'll get it, but they are 1099, so it's a little more complicated. But the question is, can they apply for the EIDL or the PPP for themselves, which seems to be the answer is yes. The question is, can their salaries be forgiven under the PPP? In other words, let's say each one makes $1,000 a week. Can they just get that $1,000 a week and they don't have to prove where it went and it'll be forgiven because it's their own salaries? And if not, is the EIDL a better option because there they can just take out a loan and potentially not have to return it?
Yeah, 95% of what you guessed was right. Man, there was a lot to unpack there. Asking for forgiveness, you are going to have to show proof of how you spent this money. And honestly, that's where my law firm is going to make a lot of money because we're going to coach people through this. Here's how you spend the money, and then we're going to prepare the application for you. And the application for forgiveness, you take back to the bank that lent you the money. So you need to make that a very easy decision for them. So if an independent contractor gets the PPP, and if they spend it in the right way, and if they document it properly and apply the right way, yes, that can be forgiven. But I wouldn't assume that's going to be an easy process. Or I wouldn't assume it's going to be that straightforward. So that was that question, but you had another, there was another question.
What about with EIDL then?
Okay, so yeah, this is literally what I'm doing one-on-one with business owners is talking through it, right? It's going to depend, like if your process servers are making $1,000 a week and they're independent contractors, do they have money coming in elsewhere? Do they have other jobs that they're working? Like it's going to depend on more of their
We're in New York, we're shut down. Nobody's doing anything.
Yeah.
But in other words, as a business owner, your employees' salaries are forgiven. So is their own personal salary as an independent contractor considered salary, and regardless of what personal expenses they use it for, that's salary? Or is that not correct?
It's probably going to be correct in 95% of circumstances. So if your contractors are like sole proprietors, they haven't set up an LLC or a corporation or anything like that they're doing business. Like if you write a check to a human being and they account for it that way, their income is able to be forgiven through the PPP. There are things that they could do to screw that up. You know, I got a client that they make a couple $100,000 a year and it's all on owner's draw. It's not through W-2 wages through their LLC, and they're leaving a ton of money on the table because of the way that their business is set up right now. So there are exceptions to it, but in general, if you got a process server who's just an individual sole proprietor and you're writing checks to them.
So then what would be better, the PPP or the EIDL? Because the PPP in theory would be $1,000 a week times, I guess, 10 weeks is $10,000. The EIDL, the automatic part is $10,000. It's the same number. Is there one that would be easier than the other one that you would recommend? And this is probably something most process servers that are independent contractors throughout the country are fighting with themselves.
Yep. I don't, that's actually a really good question. And I do want to answer that, and I don't want to sound like I'm dodging it, but I'm going to dodge it the best. The EIDL, you're talking a $10,000 grant or advance, but the EIDL loan can be for an amount greater than that. The SBA may give you $50,000, right? I don't know if they will, but they could. So the difference between the loan and the grant, you got to pay back, but it's at low interest and it's over 30 years. So maybe your guys want that because whatever, they got expenses that they want to spend that on. So
and 10,000 they would be able to keep then.
Yeah, the 10,000's theirs.
So the EIDL is definitely way to go. Plus the application process is so much easier.
I'm not painting with that broad of a brush. You're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm saying it's an option. I'm saying it could be a good option. But the PPP, depending on how much they're making, may be a better option, may end up in more free money, and may end up with them not having any other debt. So I'm not going to tell you there's one thing that's best for everybody that you work with, because all their situations are different. You know, maybe they're married, maybe they got a spouse who's bringing in income, maybe that they got other jobs on their own. So there's a lot that goes into it. My advice, if you want me to give them an action plan, my advice probably is go and apply for the EIDL right now, and then talk to somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about to get advice on whether you take that money or whether you go for a different program.
Just because
in the interest of moving this along, because we only have about 10-15 minutes left, there's some kind of final housekeeping things that we wanted to share on our end. And if we can get through this in 3 or 4 minutes, then we can keep it open for some more questions. But I just wanted to remind everyone on this webinar that we are doing this weekly, same time. We have the next 3 weeks after this on our calendar for additional webinars. Sounds like we have a lot more questions for Adam, so maybe he'll have to make a second appearance at some point. I will let you know that I'm going to start a poll here in a second in the Zoom. I want you to go ahead and answer those questions in the poll if you don't mind. We built a lot of resources on servenow.com. If you go to our website, click on the COVID banner, we'll have not only this webinar recording there, but previous and subsequent ones as well as a bunch of different state-by-state resources and information as it relates to keeping our industry safe and up and running. I believe, next slide, real quick. Adam, why don't you give us like a 2-3 minute, Adam Cameras, give us a 2-3 minute overview of this one. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe Adam Williams can do an AMA for us on Slack at some point here.
Yeah.
But Adam, give us the quick overview so we can get back to some questions here.
Yeah, sure. And I think that one thing to mention is that Adam Williams has put together a survival guide, and we will send out the link that you can put in your email address and get the link for that in the follow-up to this. But Trent, perfect segue. So now more than ever, we need real-time, relevant, and accurate communication. We have launched what is called a Slack channel in which to do this. And a lot of you probably are not familiar with Slack, and it is a real-time communication platform being used by lots of communities, lots of businesses throughout the globe. If you go to SOP Slack, Service of Process Slack, sopslack.com, you can register for it. This is professional. There are channels on there broken down, certainly by your states, but also topics. One of the topics on there is COVID. And I know we're not going to get to everyone that's raising their hand, and all of I can see there's over 40 odd questions in the queue, and many people have raised their hand as well. We're not going to get to all of that now. So what I would recommend is you go to Slack, sopslack.com, you apply. Full disclosure, there will be a fee for this in a year. Right now, all fees are being waived for it. And nothing is more important right now than clear, concise communication amongst the industry. We all need to band together and be stronger. And this is a modern piece of technology to use so that we can all communicate. Go there, set up account. It's a little, can be a little confusing. Introduce yourself. Add the channels that are relevant to you and your business. But I think as a start, what we don't get through today, let's take those conversations over to SOP Slack in the COVID channel there. Ask your questions, and we will all do our best to get there. Maybe we can get Adam to come back or hop in there and ask some of these questions. Maybe there's somebody else, but we've set this up so that we can all be on the same page and get through this together.
I guess with that said, let's use the last 9 minutes or so. Questions. Steve, did you have any questions that you saw in the chat?
While he was talking, I did. There was a question again, Adam, in regards to the 75 and 25%. So could you explain again the forgiveness and the forgiveness part of it and what is mandated by the stimulus plan?
Yeah, I'm looking at 36 questions still in the Q&A, and I'm realizing what a horrible job I did explaining all this stuff. All right, payroll protection. Borrow 2.5 times your payroll. I just put a link in the chat. I recorded a video explaining exactly what is included in payroll. It's impossible to follow. Read the description of the video. It's all like I copied and pasted the law. You're going to read it and still have more questions. I get it, but that's the way the law is written. Borrow 2.5 times your payroll. When you get that money, you have 8 weeks to spend it on payroll, rent, mortgage interest, and utilities. As long as 75% of what you spent is on payroll, it all gets forgiven. Everything that you spent gets forgiven. But you have to maintain your employment numbers, and you have to mostly maintain the wages that you pay. So if your payroll was $10,000 a month, you have to maintain at least 75% of that. If your head count drops, or if you've already laid people off, you have until June 30th to bring them back. There's a grace period. So a lot of people are, the construction industry in Pennsylvania is shut down right now, which is ridiculous. They're waiting, they're going to get this money. Hopefully they're going to be able to go back to work and rehire all their employees by June 30th. So again, keep in mind, the goal of that program is to maintain payroll, to keep people employed. So spend the money on payroll, try and keep the people employed or bring them back, and you'll get the maximum amount of forgiveness.
What they're trying to do is what they're not trying to do is to give people $70,000, $80,000, and then they go pay off their second mortgage or their house and expect for it to be forgiven, or to pay off their car. They want you to use the payroll protection plan to keep people employed and off of unemployment. Now, they may use unemployment prior to the payroll, to being funded from the payroll protection plan, but once it's funded, you bring them back on as hires, and then they get off of unemployment. It's basically saying you can collect one way or the other. Which one is more beneficial to you? I have another question here. Stephanie Slayer. I furloughed my field staff mid-March in compliance with the shelter-at-home county order, and they all immediately applied for unemployment under the advice of my employment attorney. Will it affect the forgiveness of the the payroll protection loan since payroll dipped? I'm told that if the payroll is not stable, so basically what she's asking the question is that because I put them on unemployment and my payroll dipped, does it affect the payroll protection plan?
Yeah, if you don't bring them back, you're not going to be able to get forgiveness.
There you go.
And it doesn't have to be, if you fired somebody because they did a bad job, you don't have to bring them back, but you got to bring somebody back to earn the wages. So they are going to look at headcount. So that's that June 30th grace period we talked about.
Because the idea is, I'm sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it doesn't make sense to bring your employees back if you're not bringing in any money. Don't go out of pocket on this stuff. They're collecting a bunch on unemployment. Most people are making more on unemployment than they did working. So, but hopefully by June 30th, we're back to work and we can get the maximum forgiveness. So I'm not saying I disagree with your employment lawyer, but you may have to consider bringing these people back, finding a way to get them off unemployment so you can get all the forgiveness.
And from the way I read it, Stephanie, is this: we know you're going to lay them off because there's no income stream coming in to pay them, but they want you to bring them back shortly after your PP. I keep saying PPPs. Your payroll protection plan is funded. You're not going to be able to not bring them back and then get forgiveness. That's the answer to that question.
Right.
Maybe we'll try a couple with their hands raised, unless Adam, camera, so you look like you were going to say something. No?
There's a lot of questions for independent contractors, and Adam, any other thoughts or guidance on, I know that they can come to you and other legal professionals, any other local resources you recommend they go to for guidance?
No.
Hold a second. You're in good hands with Adam.
Well, not even that. Listen, I'm plenty busy right now. Don't get me wrong, but we are accepting more clients. Well, I spent 2 days. I spent a couple hours this weekend training 18 other law firms how to do this stuff. Right? They're all over the country. So download our guide. They'll send you the link. You'll get daily updates from me. Hopefully, it'll answer a lot of your questions. Either we'll be able to help you directly, or you can work with another lawyer. But don't go to any lawyer. Go to a lawyer who understands this stuff. I signed a client yesterday. This kid is the son of a very prominent lawyer in our town. They got 50 lawyers in their law firm. He didn't go to them for advice. He came to me because this is what I've lived for the last 3 weeks. So just make sure you're talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Your banker doesn't have a clue. Your accountant may or may not have a clue. Your lawyer may or may not have a clue. So make sure that you're getting good advice.
I would agree with him because there's so much out there. There's so much that is not true or innuendo or just people making things up thinking that that's how they believe it's supposed to be. And I know I'm not an attorney, but I've spent a lot of time looking at this because I'm trying to figure out how to protect my business and how to survive this COVID-19 thing. And I'm just passing on the things that I've learned. And Adam, you've been right on top of it, which you probably already knew. So, and now I want to pass this on too, in case we don't get to say this. Kim Cummings said, nope, not Kim. Gina Wilder said she just wanted to say thank you. Good information, Adam. It's not that you didn't answer the questions and why they're being asked multiple times. It's because people are trying to figure out how to process it. So you've done a good job, a great job.
Well, we just took 1,000 pages of new laws and mapped it out for you in about 56 minutes. So it's okay that there are questions.
And there will be more. I think this is probably a good time to sort of wrap things up, unless there's any final thoughts from our panelists. I'll let you guys get the last word in. But again, go to Adam's website, download his guide, hop in our Slack channel. We're going to do the best that we can to make sure that there's good information and engagement there, especially as it relates to this topic. You can email myself, Adam Camrus, Steve Glenn as well if you have any questions. I think Adam Williams, your email was on this slide as well. But I will, we have about a minute left, so if our panelists have anything else to share, please let me know and we'll wrap this up. And it sounds like we might need to do something like this again in the very near future via some medium.
Real quick, Trent, I'll try and get onto Slack once a day. Probably, let's just say like 1 o'clock my time on Mountain Time for an hour to kind of answer questions. And I think, I'm not certain, but I think Slack keeps a log of what's going on. So it's like conversations, right? And I think there's a section probably in there for the COVID-19 stimulus, I would assume. Yeah. Okay.
There is. There's a COVID channel, and I see applications kind of rolling through. We'll do our best to get those people added as soon as possible.
Okay, no problem. I'll do that. So if you don't catch me live, just leave a question or send me an email, and I'll try and answer it through Slack so that we can get people questions answered that I know of. That way we don't have to bother Adam coming on there or joining Slack and spending 50 hours answering questions.
Yeah, I can't type fast enough to keep up with all those questions.
Get a bot.
There you go.
Buy a bot.
Camrus, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just thank everybody. We know we did not get to everyone's hands. There's still a lot of them and lots of questions. We'll try and find the forum to get to all these. Thank you for your participation. And Adam, thank you very much, for joining us today and sharing the knowledge that you've acquired, over the last few weeks, and the crash course of information that you're distilling down in a short amount of time. Steve, again, thank you so much for putting this all together and the vision behind it.
Yeah, no problem, man. You know, I'm here to serve. I've been serving all my life from the time I went in the United States Navy. So no sense in
All right.
change.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll be back next week.
And Trent, I don't know if you mentioned it
ahead.
yet. We will be sending out the recording to anyone who missed, you know, part of the webinar. So look for that either later today or first thing tomorrow.
Yep, you'll get a copy via email and probably get it posted on the COVID page on ServeNow as well. All right, everyone, have a great
Thanks,
rest
everybody.
of your day.
Be safe.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye,
Mr.
guys.
NASCAR.